All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'll be going over. Let's see. Let's fix that right now. Yep, let's try the upper corner for today. And yeah, I hope your weekend's going well. And yeah, over here, I'll just go and review the recommendations I made yesterday, considering uh, essentially the best deals available in Canada on, you know, tech. So computers, laptops, tablets, and smartphones, even. Yeah, this week did not progress on this Tech Advisor's features. Sorry about that. All that much. I was instead focusing on well, I wanted to create some content. It had been weeks since I had streamed anything, so on Thursday afternoon, I streamed a little bit of Enter the Gungeon. You can still go and take a look at that on either Twitch or YouTube. I published in both places. Of course, YouTube tends to keep those a little longer, so I expect on in the long run it's going to be its final place, really. And yeah, there's a few things around. I'm not sure. There's one thing I really want to do, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to dedicate enough time to it. And that's in most scenarios, I think that we're better off with a different device for when we're on the move and another one for home, especially if you spend a lot of time at the same desk. I mean, if you buy a laptop and then it remains on the desk set up pretty much permanently all the time, you're mostly wasting money there, because you have to get a pretty high-end laptop to do everything you need anyway, and it's going to age much faster than a desktop computer would. So usually I like to split need in two different archetypes. One archetype's for when you're on the move, and another one for when you're at home just kicking back, relaxing, or maybe playing games. Or even, be productive. A laptop I don't usually recommend for periods longer than 30 minutes, really. Simply because of the ergonomics of the thing. You can set it up on a desk for longer periods of time, so you can stretch up to 1 hour. But yeah, it's a little tricky. It takes quite a bit of extra equipment to do that. And yeah, for some people it might be worth it, especially if you mostly use your computer away from the desk or anything like that. Then just having a spot you can hook it up for a longer work session makes sense. Um, but yeah, if you spend most of your time at the desk anyway, or if you hook up your computer at the desk for anything demanding like games, usually I like to recommend, well, getting a stationary computer for gaming and get a laptop for the simpler needs you have while you're away. There's no big benefit of trying to lug the whole thing into a single device that is more likely to fail, to leave you high to dry at the worst possible time. While if you have two devices, it's a little bit easier to plan Bs are easier to come by when that happens. So you're a little bit less in trouble when shit happens, basically. So yeah, one of the thing I programmed something not this week, last week, that allows me to sample archetypes on a dynamic page if I want. So I'd really like to have one of those. Use that to make a tool to, how would I describe that? Basically make a tool to help you figure out, well, I don't need to be able to, let's say, play games or do CAD or do 3D modeling all the time. I only do that for my desk. So a tool that allows you to figure out your mobile profile and stationary profile side by side, so you can start looking at what kind of pricing you can actually look at, and maybe include a little bit of budgeting in there. So that's something I would really like to do, but I think that right now one of the things TechAdvisor needs the most is a refresh of inventory. I'm lagging behind in a few fields right now, so I have to rebuild inventory from what Microsoft is selling, because, well, it's one of my favorite places to go shopping for a laptop, to be honest. And well, they have their affiliate marketing system actually recognized my effort too, so I do have a little bit of financial incentive to feature Microsoft stuff. So I've got that to do. Then there's Best Buy, which yeah, sadly no real financial incentive on that end, but it's still something people look at a lot. And yeah, I'm trying to Best Buy, Staples, Microsoft, try to cover the big ones first, so that people can basically, if they see something in the flyer and they want to know, well, how does that compare, then they can go on my site and look it up. So yeah, that's my goal in the end, really. So I've got a little bit of that to do. I'm also curious, usually Memory Express has back to school special edition computers. And usually those things are very cost effective for the kind of hardware they have in there. They're almost always really light on the storage space, but the specs otherwise are really good. So considering how easy it is to add a hard drive in those things, I have no trouble recommending those despite the storage situation, really. And usually it's some of the best prices of the year there on stationary computers, so I need to go and see if they started creating some of those back to school special edition builds, because usually they're really good. So yeah, it's I kind of have to hold back on my desire to go program new features for the site and instead try to do some data entry, so that well, I can meet the needs of my viewers as much as possible. So that's probably what I'll be trying to focus on in the coming days. Need to catch up on my data entry a little bit. One more thing, I figured a few things for doing some live video of me doing some hardware upgrades. Our kitchen computer needs an upgrade. It's painfully slow right now. So I did upgrade a few new parts. I don't have all of them yet, but I should receive the rest of it this week. But right now I've got this bracket to help me mount this SSD in that old computer. And I should be getting the extra RAM later this week. So that will give me a chance to, well, basically show up what the process is like to do upgrades, especially in an all-in-one computer. Those things are a little bit more cramped than, let's say, computer towers or anything like that. So it's a little bit more involved. So I'm hoping to stream that sometime in the next week once I receive the parts I need. So I can take you through the process of basically opening the case and all of that, especially since that model I didn't find much resource on, let's say, iFixit or any of those repair sites. So it's going to be good to document the insides of that computer a little bit so that, well, people online will be able to find some instruction on how to perform upgrades on those, because they're definitely upgradable despite the fact that all-in-ones are not the easiest or most flexible devices to upgrade, really. So yeah, I'll be putting extra RAM in there. I'm going to replace the 5.25 inch 1 terabyte hard drive that's in there with much smaller SSD because we didn't need the storage really. I looked at how much space we take in there and it's way below the 100 gigabyte threshold, so I got 120 gigabyte SSD from Amazon for $30. So that's what I'm going to go with, and since it's only that computer we use it in the kitchen, so it's for checking recipes. My wife uses it a lot just to, keep up with social media and all that sort of things while she's in the kitchen. So yeah, nothing too heavy there, and since it's all-in-one, then you don't have to worry about liquid spills and all that stuff as much as you would with, let's say, a tablet or a laptop. So that project is incoming as well, and I'll be streaming that and keeping that on my video channels as well, so that people can find resources on how to upgrade that specific machine later. So yeah, if you have an old computer that you were a little hesitant to upgrade yourself, well, stay tuned, and that way you might be able to just see what the process is like. And that's it for basically the behind the scenes and what's happening with Tech Advisor these days. And let's take a look at the recommendations I made yesterday for my Tech Word Buy newsletter and see how they hold up, really. So the market right now, on average, it's definitely stabilizing. We definitely noticed that prices were dropping pretty steadily for a month and a half, 2 months even there. And it's slightly rising now. So time will tell if it's going to go up on a reliable manner. But usually the best time of the year to buy new tech, if you take things on an average, is around the Labor Day sales. So around Labor Day we have a 3-day weekend, and that's 1 day or two before students go back to school, at least depending on where you are and what level. But I know that around here I checked university and high school sites, and they were both getting back to school on the September 4th, if I remember right, and September 3rd is Labor Day. So that's probably where it's going to be the best, but as I said, it's always an overall statement. There's going to be lots of rebates in there, but the individual rebates might not be the most generous then. So yeah, keeping an eye on where the market is going right now and all of that. But uh, as I said, it's not as good as it was last year. But at least if we look at it from a real broad description, a few individual items and a few how would I say, user archetypes are actually better off this week than they were last week. So on the accessories front, picked a few. It's pretty much my usual selection of accessory stuff that is very likely to become to come in handy for various reasons. Most of those accessories are better off for, let's say, a desk setup. So it could be for your laptop. To set up a place where you can spend longer periods of time to work on. Because, yeah, as I said, on typical laptop without any, without a stand, without keyboard and mouse, and without an additional screen, usually I don't really recommend them for more than 30 minutes, simply because of the way they're set up. You at least want a laptop stand and keyboard and mouse to at least put the laptop at the good height on the desk and work comfortably. And yeah, a larger screen always helps, but this one is kind of optional unless your screen is very small. So yeah, there was keyboard and mouse combo order. Here we have a gaming optical mouse. And prices are holding on both of us since yesterday. So as usual, Amazon tends to beat most prices out there when it comes to input devices. They're really competitive on that market. So that's usually where we find those at the best prices, and still true today. Yeah, difference between a gaming mouse and a regular mouse is essentially they're more durable, they have better sensors, and they're more customizable as well. So they definitely come in handy for, let's say, CAD or graphic design and stuff like that, as well as gaming if you want to. And this particular model is fairly inexpensive for that end too. And yeah, external monitor, always a good thing to have in there. Maybe you just need an extra monitor for your existing computer, or you just need a new one, or yeah, you just want to extend your working space when you're working on a laptop at your desk. So that would definitely help with that. There are cheaper monitors still. It's pretty much the exact same deal that I had last week, and Canada Computer is currently leading on the price front for this one. But as you see, you can get it from a variety of places right now. I invested a little bit more than the minimum in order to get an IPS display. And IPS displays tend to be a little bit less susceptible to reflections, and they have better view angles as well. So especially if you watch a monitor with somebody else, or if you're not always sitting straight in front of the computer all the time, it's definitely a good thing to have an IPS display then. So it can be a nice thing to have, let's say, in the dorm room or something like that, where your computer is also your entertainment center. For smartphones, Galaxy A5 went down in price since yesterday, especially if you buy it straight from Samsung, and Amazon followed in price as well. So it's a little bit cheaper than usual, and I mean, most days it's already pretty cheap. So if you don't want to spend a lot on a smartphone, but would rather have a good battery life on it, don't. And not sure I would exactly expect it to last more than a day. Still, it's a little bit uncommon for smartphone nowadays to reach that kind of performance. Well, endurance anyway. But yeah, I'll take my picture back down here. Better. Yeah, the A5 is essentially something you can get for very cheap, especially if you get it without a contract or anything like that. If you want, to be free to go wherever you want to and all of that, the A5 is not bad for that nowadays. Originally, when it came out, it was still legal to for service provider to lock your phones. So this one was, you bought it unlocked, but as soon as you attached it to mobile provider services, it would lock to them. But not anymore, thanks to that new legislation. So gives you the option to easily, if you can't afford to pay your mobile bill that week, or if you want to downgrade it, maybe not get any data for it, maybe just a phone, it's easier to do with that because, well, you don't have any engagement with your provider to basically lock you into their services. So yeah, in those scenarios, that's the least you're going to pay for what I consider to be a very worthwhile phone. Not the best at pictures, it's definitely not the strongest out there either, but it's going to cover the basics very well. And if what you mostly want out of a phone is a phone, it's not a bad way to go. And despite not being the strongest phone out there, it's still going to cover your basics fairly well, including quite a fair amount of gaming. It's not going to excel at anything really, but yeah, you've got the basics covered. Otherwise, if you need something that's more powerful, that's able to switch from one app to the other faster, something like the OnePlus 6 is definitely going to perform a lot better there. Usually like the OnePlus phones quite a bit because, well, essentially they provide you with the flagship experience without the flagship prices. Obviously, they followed the pack a little bit more this year, which I kind of wish they hadn't. So they raised the screen resolution, which, in my opinion, was not necessary at all. They got a notch, which I would have done without. That black area at the top of the screen there. Kind of regrettable, if you ask me. And the back of the phone is made of glass, which, again, not the best. It's definitely one of the modern trends, but it's definitely in the bad idea column if you ask me. So, sadly, they followed a few trends that I would have done before without. But they did improve on the, it's a stronger device than the 5T by a small amount. The camera is roughly exactly the same, and it's not the best camera out there. But it's going to be good enough for most people, and even beyond that. There's so few phones these days that really qualify as quote unquote having a bad phone, unless you're very, very much into mobile photography. For everybody else, yeah, the OnePlus 6 camera is going to be fine, I'm pretty sure. So not the best battery autonomy because it's a strong phone. It's very capable, but usually, yeah, you can expect to last a day on this of moderate usage without too much problem. It's just that, yeah, compared to some other models like the A5, definitely the OnePlus 6 doesn't last quite as long. It does charges very quickly though, so it's got that going for it. It's easy to top off your smartphone in the middle of the day in 10 minutes. So it's a little bit less of an issue now. But yeah, in terms of games and stuff like that, it's much better. As you see, we score much higher in most areas now. And yeah, one of the biggest thing you're going to observe when comparing a smartphone with little performance to one that has a lot is that it's going to be the switching speed between one app and the other. And yeah, one thing that I did not update before this stream, and I probably should, sorry about that, is that the OnePlus 6 is among the smartphones that have access to Fortnite on Android as of today. So if you wanted to have a phone capable of running Fortnite, well, it's one of the first Android devices to get it too, even though it's not a Samsung model. The A5 is not on the list. It's not strong enough for Fortnite yet, but the OnePlus 6 is. So if that was one of the things you absolutely wanted to do, OnePlus 6 is definitely not a bad place for that. The A5 might eventually follow up. We'll have to see. Another thing that the OnePlus 6 has that is uncommon for Android devices is that it's got a dual SIM slot, which allows you to essentially, if you travel a lot, allows you to save a lot on your data expenses without changing your phone number while you're abroad. And it does that by basically, instead of getting a roaming plan with your provider including data, you only take it for your phone number, and once you get to your destination, you get a data plan with a local provider, and you end up paying basically what the locals pay, which in most cases is a lot less than what we pay in Canada. So that way you still have your phone number for when you need to be reached, but you have access to data at a cheap rate as well. So definitely a plus for travelers among us. And if you want to spend more, or more demanding about your camera, or just like the Apple design for your phone a little bit more, the iPhone 8 would be my pick right now. unlike the iPhone 10, you have your fingerprint reader on this, which is faster to unlock than face recognition anyway. And pretty capable phone, almost as good as the iPhone 10. And yeah, even though there's a number missing in between, both phones came out the exact same year, only a few months apart. So personally, I prefer that design quite a bit. It's less innovative. It's the tried and true design for a smartphone, but they didn't sacrifice anything that I feel that the iPhone 10 is missing. Obviously, you're already missing the headphone jack on this thing. But at least you still have a fingerprint reader and no notches on the screen. Speaking of phone, here we go. So yeah, if you want to go with an Apple model, that's where I would go right now personally. And in terms of what it's capable of doing and all of that, well, we have the list here. And yeah, as I mentioned, Fortnite just came out for Android for select phones only, and that's one of them. Well, I mean, iOS had it for a while, and now that it's no longer exclusive. But as you see, it's already 2-star rating, which is pretty good. 2 stars means that it's more than minimal requirement, essentially. So yeah, pretty good value still for that price. And yeah, having access to the iOS store instead of the Play Store, usually you tend to get games a little earlier. And one of the things I've noticed, especially with quote-unquote premium games, is that often you can just buy it out outright on the iOS store, and you can play it without being bothered by ads or microtransaction or anything like that. There's quite a few game designers that find that practice very annoying, and it can really ruin the game. But on iPhone, it's a little bit more common than for those premium games. You can just play them and not be bothered and just soak in the experience. On Android, that option's not always available right off the bat. I've seen a few, like with Alto's Odyssey and a few games like that, where the Android version comes ad supported, and you use in-game transactions to disable the ads. So they have a little bit more of a piracy issue on the Android side of things. So as a result, you end up usually paying less for games and apps on Android, but it also means that essentially developers have your welfare at heart a little bit more on the iPhone than an Android phone. So pros and cons, really. Otherwise, if you're looking at something a little bigger to do more and without necessarily a data plan, so if you're just hopping from Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi and that sort of stuff, tablets are often a better pick, and this convertible Chromebook is it's a regular recommendation of mine. This one runs both Chrome OS and Android, so you have access to mobile apps as well as a full desktop web experience. So you have a full browser at your disposal, and those things can do quite a bit even when they're offline. You've got, real USB port. You've got card readers for your camera as you travel, and basically you just have to either use the Wi-Fi from the hotel when you're on the road, or maybe just stop at McDonald's or Tim Hortons or one of those places with free Wi-Fi, and you can basically quickly connect, check on email, social media while you're traveling with no extra cost to you from your mobile provider. So it's definitely more cost effective usually for travelers than the phone itself, with a few caveats. And yeah, this device is extremely versatile, especially for the price, and right now Costco's selling it pretty cheap, cheaper than the others. That is obviously on Costco's website, so there is no guarantee that in store you would actually find the same deal. But yeah, Costco.ca has free deliveries and a few things like that, so not a bad place to get it necessarily. Just don't necessarily expect that it's always going to be available from stores. It's more of an online thing here. The first brick and mortar store in the list here is Best Buy. So you could get it from there, but it's about $20 more expensive that way. So not necessarily a deal breaker, and you can always try to get your local Best Buy to match the online price from Costco as well. And in terms of apps, since it runs both Android and web apps, you got quite a few choices in there. I don't have many web apps in my library right now, but as you see, you have the option to play quite a few things on this, despite the fact that it's definitely not a gaming device at heart. But yeah, if you just need something to keep you occupied or entertained during your commute or lunch hour or something like that, it's not a bad way to go. So yeah, very versatile for the price, even though if it's not super strong, but the thing, it can do so many different things, especially since you can use it as either a laptop or a tablet. So if versatility is your top priority while on the go, this is an excellent way to go. Otherwise, if gaming is at the forefront for you, the Nintendo Switch, definitely the apex mobile gaming device right now. The obvious downside of this is that it does nothing else. So don't expect to check on your Facebook or emails or even watch YouTube or Netflix on this. It's not currently going to happen, although we do hear that Netflix might be coming to the Switch soon, so maybe you'll be able to watch videos on this while on the go if you want. But yeah, when it comes to, let's say, playing Fortnite or Warframe or a lot of those games that you're definitely not going to be able to play on your iPad, this is definitely the best pick for gaming. And yeah, you can use it as a tablet on the go, or just hook it to the TV at home and use it as a regular gaming console. So very interesting device, especially to keep kids on the go without necessarily having to pay a microtransaction or watching ads requiring online connectivity just to provide you without those ads also. So this one works offline in most cases. Obviously, you're not going to do much offline play in Fortnite or Warframe. But yeah, You can play Stardew Valley on the go, you can play Breath of the Wild, so you've got a lot of entertainment available here. Battery life isn't as high as the other, but let's face it, if you were to play non-stop of an iPad, you would probably drain the battery in 4 hours the way you do on a Nintendo Switch as well, if not faster. And otherwise, if you want easy access to all kinds of accessories and you much prefer the iOS ecosystem, the iPad 9.7 inch is currently slightly reduced at the brick. Not the brick, sorry, the source. As an introductory price, which was a little strange to me because they've been selling this for a little longer. But yeah, you can get it for $400 instead of the regular price. And yeah, otherwise it's an iPad. You have the option to pay $150 for a pen to add to it. You can add another $150 for a keyboard cover. I don't like those options too much simply because you end up with something. You end up with trying to mimic the functionality of a laptop for. You end up with what, $700 once you add all the accessories in, and for $700 you can get a much better laptop in my opinion. So yeah, unless you really want to use the iPad mostly as a tablet, getting all those accessories for keyboards and stuff is a bit wasteful in my opinion. But still, there's something to be said about just using the going with the market leader, which means that yeah, you're going to get lots of options for accessories. You're going to get that's probably still the best app store in my opinion, even though the Apple App Store definitely has its issues. So yeah, if you like their stuff, if you're part of their ecosystem using iTunes and their smart speakers and all that kind of stuff, the iPad is probably the way to go. Personally, I prefer to be a little bit free of on which device I can go with my services, but I know there definitely are many people that really like the way Apple integrates all their services together. So yeah, the market leader advantage for the iPad, and it's capable of running quite a few things though. So proven, tested, almost a classic at this point, travel companion. Otherwise, if we go for laptops, so for the price of an iPad with a keyboard built in, you can get this instead. This laptop, I've been recommending it for a few weeks now, and for $650, it's a pretty good deal. I rarely see laptops with a 1080p screen selling for much lower than that. It happens sometimes, it's just not common. So yeah, it's a very capable laptop for the price. And yeah, it's capable enough for you to do some multitasking. So if you have to handle, let's say, 2 documents at once, or you use apps which have pretty intense UI, like some of those audio recording or editing software or stuff like that, the screen on this is going to support that, and it's going to be capable of running quite a few of those. It doesn't necessarily, it's not the smallest device, it's not easier to carry around, it's not either going to be to last super long on the battery charge, but the thing is, it's large enough to use on desk, small enough to carry around. It's really, if we boil it down, it's the most versatile laptop for that kind of money. And in that perspective, it's a great value. Uh, it You already have access to Fortnite with keyboard and all the capabilities that come with that. It's not going to blow anyone away, but you definitely have access to most of what you would need in there. So yeah, World of Warcraft, not going to get that on an iPad. And same thing with Stardew Valley and a few of those things. So you see what I meant when I was saying that if you take an iPad with all the accessories in there, that you deem those accessories as necessary, you end up overspending. Well, that's what I meant. It's, of course, there's still a few reasons. This is bulkier and heavier and a little bit harder to carry. But on the flip side, you have much better keyboard, you have a much better screen as well. So yeah, in the end, that would be my personal pick, but you go with your gut in there. If we're looking for something that is easier to carry around, this 13-inch convertible laptop from Dell is it's another regular recommendation of mine, as we can see from the pricing history here. It's still very capable, but it's much smaller at 13-inch instead of 15.6. But on the upside, the battery life is much better already, and we're still under the $1,000 mark here. And you can buy it online or in stores, whichever you're more comfortable with, from Microsoft. And one of the reasons I like buying devices from Microsoft instead of other retailers is that every Windows device they sell is what they call Signature Edition, which means they don't have the bloat that often comes bundled on laptop when you buy them elsewhere and end up slowing down things. It's very common that you buy a new laptop and it's already clogged with programs you're probably never going to use and sometimes are very hard to uninstall from the drive. This doesn't come with any bloat, so I much prefer them for that. You've got the Microsoft Office, which personally I don't use, but most people do, so I'll give the Office trial version a pass for being qualifying as bloat personally. But yeah, easier to carry and much longer battery life on this. If you try to run anything too demanding on this, it's going to drain the battery really quick and probably not get that as fast as it could, simply because when they try to miniaturize things that much, throttling and overheating becomes an issue most of the time. So yeah, gaming and all of that, you can do it. As you see, it's roughly equivalent for Fortnite among other things, but yeah, it might be overeating on that a little bit. But if you spend most of your day away from the power outlet, and gaming is not as much of an issue, then definitely a better pick here. And back to a 15-inch laptop, but this time it's this one is marketed as a gaming device, and the specs are not bad. It's a 1050 GTX in there, so you definitely have more horsepower than most computer out there when it comes to running games or graphical software like video editing or Photoshop and stuff like that. But obviously there is fancier than this by quite a bit. 1050 is basically the bottom grade graphics card from Nvidia right now. So yes, you can play on this. It's going to be much better than the ones that just use Intel graphics or AMD or stuff like that. But yeah, just be aware. Yeah, no real bragging right here, even though you're beating most laptops on the market right now with this. So we get quite a bit further in Fortnite with this, not quite meeting the recommended specs yet, but getting pretty close. We get, basic functionality in Premiere. Minecraft, we almost reached a 5-star, which is exceeding recommended specs for the program to run. Almost recommended spec for World of Warcraft as well, but you definitely meet the minimum recommended specs in there. And yeah, there's a few things in this list that we wouldn't even consider with the previous laptops, like Maya, After Effects, and so on. So you can run a lot more programs on this much better. On the other hand, those things are pretty heavy. They drain batteries very, very fast, especially if you're playing games or stuff like that. So you definitely sacrifice a lot in terms of autonomy or portability by going with a gaming laptop. But if you don't have any room at home to dedicate to a gaming computer, or that you just move on a regular basis, a laptop like that is going to be a much better choice. And it's still small enough that you can consider carrying it around on a pretty much daily basis. So it's a versatile one if you absolutely have to put all your eggs in the same basket and all your money in a single device. It's not a terrible way to go, and it's available for under $1,000 right now. So and it's, well, or at least if you're willing to go with an open box bought online from Best Buy, it's almost $150 more expensive to get a brand new one, which is also available online only from Best Buy. So depending. You could save $100 by buying it new from Amazon instead. So things worth considering. But yeah, you can definitely run quite a bit more here. MacBook Air is a pretty good solution if for productivity on the go. The Mac ecosystem is traditionally a little bit better for creatives and stuff like that, even though the MacBook Air is definitely not a very strong device right now. But still, for portability and going to class and that sort of things, it's actually pretty well suited to that. So for instance, you run slightly different set of apps in there. A lot of programs are not available for macOS, including Fortnite, for instance. So it's definitely missing here, but you still get, Minecraft, Stardew Valley. The Sim is available too, so you can run quite a few of them. It's one of those 10 very small laptops, so yeah, if you push them a little too much, especially in demanding apps like games or video editing and that sort of thing, expect them to get noisy, very hot, and probably slow down pretty significantly pretty fast. So those are not devices you can push very hard. You have to keep that in mind. Because if you do, they will perform significantly worse than what they should do on paper. But still, if you have to just do a quick edit in Premiere or something like that, it's going to perform well on that as long as you're not. But it's not the best suited thing for, let's say, editing video all night, simply because it will slow down very fast for that sort of thing. And back to a gaming laptop, but this time a much beefier model. We've got this 17-inch laptop here, and those things are pretty good as temporary game slash workstations. And this model is a little bit stronger than the last gaming models I presented to you. But it's significantly larger. And at 17-inch, those things are not easy to carry around. Yes, we can find several bags that are able to fit those things, but this is heavy. And I used to work at the university, and I've seen enough 20 years old with back problems simply because they were carrying around laptops which were way too big or heavy for their own good, that even younger users should be careful about that sort of thing. So when we look at a laptop which weighs 3 kilos and is a 17-inch models, usually I recommend those as in a scenario where you cannot dedicate a desk at home for your gaming or work computer. This would be a great station for Premiere, Photoshop, and so on. And yeah, it's small enough that you can just fold it up, stash it somewhere while you're not using it. It's easy enough to use around the house, but if you have to carry this outside on a regular basis, like almost daily, I would definitely look somewhere else. Sure, you have the option to bring that to LAN parties and things like that. You can do it every once in a while, but I would not recommend doing that on a regular basis, not with a 17-inch laptop. But they are a little bit better at being a workstation for long sessions, as long as you can put them on a comfortable desk to do that. And as we see in terms of performance, we go quite a bit further with this laptop. So you're capable of doing quite a bit in here, and it's especially attractive if you're willing to get the open box model online from Best Buy. Otherwise, you're going to pay literally $500 more for the privilege of having the brand new one. And it's starting to be a little bit expensive, well, in my opinion anyway, for a PC with a 1050 Ti in it. But if you're open to picking up an open box model, it's pretty good deal. And back to the Ultra Portable for $1,300 from Microsoft again. Dell XPS 13 are pretty renowned as great laptops for the road warrior. So anyone who has to work away from home and get quite a bit of work done while away. And the XPS line from Dell is it's their premium line, so you get a few benefits in there. They're definitely going to look a bit better than their Inspiron, for instance, counterpart. So this is roughly $400 more than the previous one from Dell I recommended. It's not a convertible, so you can only use that as a laptop, but you do have a touchscreen if you want to use that to switch slide in a PowerPoint or something like that. So very efficient and light and endurance laptop for someone that works on the go. And yeah, in terms of what it's capable of running, we have a pretty good selection still. You're definitely going to have a lot of options open to you. And yeah, being a compact laptop is going to slow down if you try to push it too hard still. But yeah, we're looking at something that is a little bit more capable of taking that kind of treatment than, let's say, a cheaper model that don't quite get the same amount of engineering put into it. But otherwise, if most of your needs take place at the desk anyway, it might be a better idea to invest in a stationary computer. And if your budget is very restricted, this refurbished HP computer is not a bad way to go. Recommend that on a pretty regular basis on the newsletter. And sadly, you can only get that from online sources right now, either from Staples or Amazon. But those were work machine back in the day, and they're built to last. And as a result, buying those refurbished doesn't worry me as much as many other computers, especially laptops, which don't age all that well. So if you have to deal with a very restrictive budget or something like that, that is an excellent way to go, and it's going to be good enough, for homeworks, doing research, for essays and stuff like that. And yeah, your basic going online, social media, and all of that. Yeah, that computer will have no problem covering that as well. And it has the latest OS installed on it and all of that, so you won't feel that you sacrifice too much by going with that instead of a new device either. Otherwise, if you want something a little bit more substantial, I've been recommending this device over the last few weeks, especially since it delivers quite a bit for the money, and it's been price reduced for 2 weeks now. Clearly, London Drugs are trying to, well, not get rid of it, but finally sell it. We're looking at a device from a previous generation, and they currently only sell it online on their website. And yeah, you might be a little bit curious about buying a computer from a drugstore. That's a little bit uncommon, isn't it? And yeah, London Drugs is a drugstore chain we have here in the western provinces, and they have a pretty serious computer department actually. It's so yeah, I do keep an eye on them every once in a while because we do find pretty interesting deals from them. And for $700, you get a device with pretty significant horsepower. It's by no means perfect. You're not going to get bragging rights on a device like that, but it beats the 1700 laptop that we were looking at 5 minutes ago. So for $1,000 less, you get much better performance, and essentially that computer opens a lot of door for you for a minimal amount of money. And I'm not sure exactly what the story of that device with London Drug is exactly, but it's pretty clear that it's a device from previous generation that they're trying to get rid of at this point, and as a result, if you're willing to go with that, you can actually get a very good deal. For the money, you can definitely cannot beat this right now. With the obvious caveat that, yeah, you're buying it online, and yes, you're buying it from a drugstore, so you have to be comfortable with that, obviously. Otherwise, if we invest a little bit more, this gaming computer build from Memory Express would be my pick. Memory Express is a local computer chain that we have around here, and yeah, it's probably my favorite place to go shop for computer and computer parts. With the exception of laptops, then I prefer Microsoft. But yeah, been a customer there for over a decade now, and one of the thing I really like about their builds, when you go on their websites, they do have a few builds they recommend for different activities, and this is one of the more cost-effective gaming PCs they have in there. And yeah, they're built on order and all of that. But yeah, they list very clearly every single component they are going to put in there, and so far, most of the time when I look at the detailed spec, I'm happy to see that, yeah, they're building computers more or less the way I would personally if I were to build a custom one. So I'm pretty confident in those machines, and yeah, service from Memory Express so far has been very, very good. So you can buy them online or in stores if you have one of those close to your home. They're mostly established in Western Canada, but they're expanding pretty quick. And as you see, we get even better performance pretty much all across the board here. And yeah, that's what, $1,300, $1,350. Those things are well built. They're going to be relatively straightforward to upgrade and maintain in the future. So we can definitely look at this at a longer term investment than most computer, especially laptops. If you need something even stronger, we're investing. It's only $120 more than the previous model. We get a pretty significant upgrade in performance here, and as you see, we definitely see higher results in most programs there. If I do a side-by-side comparison, yeah, one more star in Fortnite, no real difference in Premiere. It was already maxed out for Minecraft, but for Ark we go from a 1.5 star rating to a 4-star rating, which is exceeding recommended specs, and a few things like that. So if you like to play games like Ark, Planet Coaster, and so on, you're definitely going to see better performances there. And yeah, for $120, I'd be very tempted to do the upgrade myself. Otherwise, if we want something even stronger, I found a pretty interesting deal available in stores from Staples right now, and this is this Republic of Gamers Strix PC, and we get better specs than the last two, pretty much better almost across the board. Um, Memory and storage are pretty much the same, but yeah, the advantage of this is that you can go to your local store and pick one and play this tonight. You don't have to wait for one to be built for you. So pretty tempting. And factory built PCs don't usually they're not as easy to upgrade in the long run. Maintenance is a little bit trickier, and basically you have fewer ports, fewer options. You still have your basic options open, however, which is more than we usually see for, let's say, a laptop. So they're still a pretty good value, especially when you get a rebate like we're seeing on this right now. Because yeah, last week it was $2 grand, and we're $250 under right now. So definitely not bad. And yeah, you can be playing on this tonight if you want to. And since the components in there are really good, we're maxing pretty much all popular software on this right now. So great for video editing or gaming or anything like that. Very capable machine at a pretty affordable price. So if you're less concerned with doing your own upgrades and stuff like that in your computer in the future, and that you need a computer quick, that would be a pretty tempting option. So that was it for this week. So thank you for joining me, and I'll be seeing you next week. Bye-bye.